Alrighty. Alright, I think we are ready to go. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. So today's what I'm going to be doing is I'm working on a new track called 5. It looks like I have a lot of stuff going on because this is just the template that I'm working with, but actually I haven't really done anything with this track. In fact, this is completely new. The only thing I've done is I've created this sort of pluck melody that I'm going to be sort of using as the basis of this track here. So let me go ahead and let you take a listen to what this is and what we're going to be building the song around. And then from there, we'll start building everything up, and I'll kind of explain how I do it as we go. So without further ado, here we go. I'll just go ahead and play this really quick. And it helps if I have the mod wheel open, which I've already automated. So as you can hear, a pretty nice melody in my opinion, and this is a pretty standard sound. Obviously it's not layered, there's nothing going on. So let's take a look at what actually is going on. So this is a Dune 3 patch, and it's kind of a modified patch of this pluck detune saws, and with the mod wheel open a little bit. And I find just kind of in the middle right now, it's sounding pretty good. So that's routed to channel 29. This is actually an instrument track, which is one of the new features in FL20, I think 20.5, which means this mixer track is actually linked with this playlist track, which is also linked with this channel, which right now is Dune 3. So it looks like I have this really complicated project set up, but this is just my default template that doesn't, I mean, it has stuff, but not a lot of stuff. So this pluck is going through this channel. Right now I've done very slight EQ, so a small mid cut here at about 200 hertz or 300 hertz, and then a very slight kind of upper end boost to give it some clarity. That's going to this pluck bus where there's actually quite a few things going on. First of all is a standard low pass, high pass filter. This low cut is at around 90 hertz, and I'll probably increase this maybe to 150, it depends what it's sounding like. Then of course a high cut at around 18.5 kilohertz. That's then going to this Mag EQ4, which isn't really doing anything right now, but I really like this plugin a lot for sort of really just kind of gentle tonal character adjustments, especially this air band here. This is a trick I learned from James Diamond, and him and Adam Ellis both had me really fall in love with this plugin, and I can't see myself producing without it. It's going into a delay. This is, I think, 2-to-1, which when you kind of have these, what I find is these sort of patterns that are on every 3/16 notes. So if you notice here, this is set to a 16th note grid, so this is going, and then here's the next 16th note. So what that means is these guys are going to hit, and since it's set to 2/16 or 1/8, 2-to-1 ratio, the next note is the delay note, is gonna hit here, then the next note hits, so it kind of creates this nice little syncopation. And maybe I'll play it for you without the delay so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. So to me, in my opinion, that's kind of boring, but as soon as you add the delay, it really brings it to life. So really liking the way that's sounding. Then that's going into an LFO tool, which is just kind of fake sidechaining. And this amount knob I actually have automated in an automation clip, so I can control how much LFO tool is going on. Let me actually open up Facebook and see if there are people that are chatting with me. So far, nothing here. Okay, no messages, but as people send me messages, I'll do my best to sort of respond, or, well, I guess I'm like live. Does Facebook show that I'm actually live right now? Facebook's still sending, so it's kind of being annoying. But anyway, feel free to chat. I do plan on checking this every once in a while, so as these things are kind of going through, I'll be doing my best to sort of respond and any ideas you guys have. But for now, I'm just going to keep going. So yeah, once again, this delay really fills in the gaps, and then we have LFO tool going on, which is kind of giving it that fake sidechain. It's going into Arts Acoustic Reverb. Once again, I haven't played around with this at all. In fact, I think the reverb might be a little bit much right now, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit. Then after that, it's going into this compressor, which is just doing, well, it's probably not doing anything right now. Yeah, the compressor's not really doing much. And then volume and filter automation, pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to get into that right now because I don't have to. Once again, feel free to ask me questions because I don't want to go too advanced, but I also don't want to spend so much time going over like low-level stuff that it ends up being kind of boring and you're hearing the same stuff again. So I'm going to try to keep it at sort of an intermediate level, but of course, if you have any questions, I'm happy to go into details about why or how or what I'm kind of doing what I'm doing. Okay, so now that we have this, the next thing I think I'm going to work on is getting a sub bass, and that may seem kind of counterintuitive because we don't really have anything else going on, but I find that getting the sub bass first and then getting your kick drum is actually a better way to work. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the sub bass, and this is just a standard silent patch set to all saws and 8 voices of sawtooth and 8 voices of square wave. Really simple, and you're going to notice that it's not going to sound like the filter's all the way open, and that's only because the EQ is just cutting off everything and then shuffling everything on the low end. So nothing else is, well, actually these things are actually on. Well, that's not doing anything. And then this guy's on, but I'm going to turn that off for now. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pencil in the sub frequencies to match this melody. And one of the things I've done is I've turned on these ghost notes so that if I'm working in the same pattern, I can actually see what's going on kind of in the background. And the way you can do that is you can go over here to Tools, and I need Helpers, and there should be Ghost Notes. And if you turn on Editable Ghosts, you can actually move these guys around. But I don't like that because I don't want to mess around with it. So for me, if I do want to edit it, you just right-click twice or right-click on it, and it'll jump you to that channel, which is pretty nice. But it just kind of helps, especially if you have like chord progressions going on. You can see what all the notes are doing without having to flip back and forth, and that's one of the really powerful tools about FL Studio's piano roll compared to other digital audio workstations. That's really convenient. Cool. All right, yeah, no comments. Cool, let's keep going. So next up, I'm just going to pencil in the bass line, and I'm going to start up here. And right now, I'm just going to do a simple offbeat for the sub bass. Trying to find which notes kind of work well. Just going to copy these guys over, and I believe this progression just kind of is the same over here, even though the top line is doing something a little bit different. So that's the sub being penciled in, and if we take a listen to that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the pluck bus down a little bit, and let's go ahead and start doing some processing on this. In fact, I'm going to solo this sub bass. First is the R bass. And now we're going to go through the EQ boost. So this track is actually in the key of D minor. That's kind of the note the progression starts with. I mean, that's not always the case. So if we actually look here on the EQ, you can see that 74 hertz. You can see, set this to about 71, so pretty close. So I was hearing kind of where that fundamental was getting boosted. So that's kind of where I'm boosting this. I actually think that probably needs a little bit of a boost. That's like an A or a G there. And one of the things I like to do, I kind of like sometimes cutting the first harmonic, and that lets the sub frequency that's actually coming through breathe a little bit more. So you kind of get this frequency masking thing going on. So if that first note's hitting at 74, then the first harmonic's going to be at 148. about then. And then if I just pull it down, actually, let me just loop this part so you can hear it. Why is it not? There it goes. So you can see, not only is it boosting that fundamental, but it's also letting the first harmonic come through. And later on is what I'm going to do is I would use this sub volume or this note volume automation clip, which is simply just a fruity balance with automation here on the volume knob, and that'll allow me different notes are going to come in different loudnesses, partially because of this the processing going on here, and then also just because maybe the power is different in different notes, or for whatever reason. So not really sure why that ends up being the case, and I probably should know that. But this will allow me to correct that so that the baseline ends up staying constant. So in fact, actually, maybe I will do that right now so you kind of get an idea. So the sub is playing here, and eventually I'll move it onto its own kind of playlist track. But this is FL Studio, so it doesn't really matter too much. Let me go ahead and even this out by looking here. So let me actually level this so the first one's hitting at 12. So you can already tell that second note is losing a little bit of volume, and I'm going to use the hold function here. Whoops. So let me go ahead and open this up. So, need to be over here. Okay. So it's a little bit loud. And generally you'll find that as you get deeper and deeper, these notes will start diminishing in volume, and you may have to bring some of them up. And you don't have to be 100% perfect, but it's good to be close. That can be a little bit. And I think this might actually be clipping that last note. So I'm just going to move this over. If you hold on Alt while you're clicking, you can kind of get more fine control. It won't snap to the grid. Oops. And this could probably use a little bit more volume. And then basically this whole thing repeats. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this guy over along with that, so that should be there. That sounds bad. I don't know what that is. So if you don't have a good set of speakers, you may not be able to really hear any of this stuff, this sub bass going on, unfortunately. And that's where it helps either having headphones or a pair of studio monitors where you can really listen. Check. Okay, yeah. Just go turn that up a little bit. Okay, cool. So I think that sounded pretty good. So let's listen to that in context. All right, cool. So now the fun part, I'm going to go ahead and get a kick going. So you notice here I have this kick pattern, which is, of course, every quarter note, but nothing's playing because I don't have a sample loaded. So I'm going to go over here and just try to find something that I think is going to work. So this is kind of a pretty I don't want to say standard, but this will be sort of a nice driving, uplifting trance track. So trying to find a nice kick that's going to really fill the void. And I'm probably looking for something more like an uplifting trance kick and not as much like a psytrance kick, although I've been hearing a lot more psytrance kicks in uplifting trance. It's kind of interesting, just kind of by nature of how the genres are evolving. That's been going on the last couple of years, I guess. So maybe I'll look over here. Kick drums. And we'll just. So this has a nice attack. So I'm just going to drag it over here. So all I'm doing with this limiter here is just bringing up the makeup gain because I'm mixing everything around the kick, but I want to make sure I have enough headroom here in my track so that I'm not peaking the master. So this limiter is just here applying makeup gain as if this track was sort of mastered before it needed to be mastered. So that's kind of why I'm doing that. Just checking to see if there are any things people are saying. Looks like Facebook isn't wanting to work right now, which is too bad. But anyway, yeah, let's keep going. So, okay, so now we kind of have a kick, but I'm just going to try different kicks to just kind of get an idea of what's out there. So that one's nice, but it doesn't have the length that I'm looking for. This one has a lot of nice low end, but I don't know if the attack is as much as I would like it to be. So I'm just kind of going through. So I'm actually really liking how that's sounding. I'm just going to give it a slight, maybe high-end boost. Nice. And with this, I'm going to go over here into this volume setting, and maybe I will, so what I may do is shorten the way this kick is. So basically... So if I go over to this kick and bass bus, and so what I do is put on an oscilloscope. Wave Candy. So this is one that ships with FL, but of course there are a lot of great... Oh, I could use one up here. A lot of great plugins like this. That you can get for free. Basically, what I'm trying to do is, let's see. So basically what we don't want is we don't want the kick and the bass happening at the same time. This isn't quite, but actually this does have a spectrogram mode, so maybe I'll, how do I do that? Anyway, spectrum, no, not, oh yeah. So actually this is perfect. You can kind of see where these are going. Let me actually change where these frequencies are, spectrum. Aha, that's what I'm gonna do. So you can actually see, here's the kick, and then these are the sub pieces kind of going along there. So if I mute the sub, see there's the kick, here's the sub. So that's sounding pretty nice. I'm actually liking the way that is. Sometimes this is what I do is I'll use Kickstart or something like LFO tool, which maybe I'll do that here. Just on the sub bass, just to make sure that it is not interfering. That actually seems to be kind of having its own space, so I'm actually not going to need to do that, I don't think. So it's actually pretty nice that I found a kick that I thought worked with the sub and with everything else pretty well off starting out. I could have gone out here for a long time and taken a while to find something, and maybe I'm actually really liking the way that sounded. I almost feel like that may not need to be revisited, but I'll keep that in mind in the future. Yeah, so. Kind of thinking that LFO tool should go after the reverb. So basically just trying to darken up that reverb a little bit. The high end was bothering me just a tad. Let's see, no messages. Cool, cool. Looks like Facebook still isn't working. Sucks, it means sending data. And let's try this again. For whatever reason, it is still sending data. Anyway, that's annoying, but let's go ahead and keep going. So I guess now kind of have a bunch of options. We could try laying out the rest of the track, getting some percussion. Could also try sort of, getting the layout or working on the breakdown, which maybe that's what I'll do. So a lot of times what I find to be helpful is using a reference track as a reference. Of course, that's what it is. Just to kind of give you an idea of how these things should be laid out. So I may actually have a couple reference tracks here on hand. Samples, if I go to downloads, maybe there's reference. Oh, this will be perfect. This is James Dyron's Siren Song. I'm just going to put this here. I want this muted because I'm not using this as a mastering reference, at least not yet. I'm simply using this as an arrangement reference to get an idea of how I may consider laying this out. And really the main thing is you just kind of follow the pattern of the kick drum. So I know by bar 33 we're going to have the sub bass coming in, even though right now I was just kind of working on this melody here. Oops. So if I copy that over, and I don't think I'm going to follow this exactly, but just kind of get an idea. So this is in this reference. This would be reference breakdown starting here, and then I think that's when the main drop will happen. So I'll go ahead and drop starts here, and then I think this is when the outro. So yeah, basically there's going to be probably a 32 bar drop, and then this track's going to get a little longer, and then this last one probably the kick isn't there, and the kind of goes back in the outro, and then finally the song ends. That's a weird ending. How does that happen? Go over here. Interesting. Didn't realize it ended like that, but yeah, that's when it would end. So I'll just mark that here. And once again, I'm not really trying to use this as something to copy, just to kind of get an idea of where the arrangement's going to be, so I have a rough idea of when everything's going to happen. So this probably wouldn't come in until here, and the sub bass wouldn't be there actually at all, so I'm going to cut that to a new pattern. And I'm going to call it sub progression because this is actually following the main chord progression that I am trying to follow. So if we're going by this guide and I go ahead and snag these, this would be where the drop would be, whoops, and this is where that melody would be here. So if you hear it, definitely doesn't sound as good as this produced track yet because there's like one layer, but hopefully it'll get there. Cool. So this is when the breakdown starts, so maybe the first thing I'll do is I'll get a pad to kind of copy what this melody is doing. And luckily I already have these set up as routed buses, but I don't have any sounds, so I need to find like some sounds that I would want to use for pads. And actually, maybe I'll take a look at what I was thinking about using Spire, but we could use Avenger. Let me check out what pads Spire has. So, and unfortunately, I just overwrote the plug that I was using and not pad, which kind of sucks. But luckily, I have this saved as a. I know where this thing is. Pluck. This was, I think, detune saw, so I'm just gonna put that back here. Cool. That should be neat. And then with this, I'm actually going to replace this guy with Spire. And let's go try to find a pad sound. Let's see. I'm just kind of picking something random, hopefully finding. It's actually kind of nice. I may leave the reverb and delay on for now until I decide to do some bus processing, because right now I don't have any reverb on this pads bus or anything. And basically, first off, this first pad, just to start off, I'm just going to have it follow whatever chord's going on here, and I may add a few notes. Actually, now, this starts with actually this is in D major, so this starts with a D major chord. So I'm actually going to just kind of follow whatever triads are going on here. And then this kind of goes down. And I think, yeah, it just goes down to the inverted minor chord there. D, F, and B. So, okay, so yeah, this would be the B major, yeah, the B major chord here, and then we're gonna go up. There's not a lot of trouble hearing this. I may try flipping this octave here. Not sure how that's going to sound. This is really quiet. Sidechain's getting on my nerves a little bit. Let's go ahead and turn that for the pads off for now. And that is being done by this channel, so Ah. And then now what I may do is I may just duplicate this bottom note an octave lower, and I think that's too low, so I'm going to pitch that up an octave, and then this. Okay, so that's actually sounding pretty good to me. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to get this on its own channel. Has its own pattern, I should say, using the correct FL terminology, and these are going to start here, so yeah. And it's a good chance this will be going throughout the entire breakdown, but just to kind of get an idea when it starts, we want this side chain down to 0, and if you take a listen, so when this part comes in with the pluck, we probably won't have the mod wheel open all the way. In fact, we may want to start down. And I'm not even sure this is where we want this pluck to start. Okay, that sounded good. The next thing I may do is get an actual lead in here. That sounds pretty nice, actually. This is a custom lead I made in Dune 2. And for now, I'm actually just going to copy this guy over. There's so much reverb on there. Yeah, so just kind of getting an idea of how this is going to go through. The lead will come in. Just kind of like that. For some reason that Mag EQ wasn't loading. High end's a little shrill to me for some reason. And this lead may end up changing. I don't really feel the delay. And that's one of the reasons trance is such a tricky genre to mix, is you got so much reverb and delay on everything. It's very easy for things to become a mess. In fact, I can already hear it potentially becoming a problem, but right now, I'm not trying to get too deep into the weeds with sound design, just really trying to get the basics of the track laid out. So that's when the first pad comes in, and maybe what I'll do is I'll bring in this low pass cutoff on the pads and start it pretty low. And I know both the plug at this point, I'm going to copy this amount and paste it here with the hole. And I'm just not sure if I'm going to be wanting there not to be any sidechain during the breakdown. I know a lot of producers, they do use sidechain during all their instruments during the breakdown, and I don't know. I think it just depends on what you're trying to go for. I personally don't find a problem with it if they're like leads or things that sound better. But definitely pads and effects, I think it does sound kind of awkward. Ever since another producer friend of mine told me about that, I was kind of listening to some tracks and I was like, you know what, you're right. Like, it actually does sound pretty bizarre when you're hearing all these things with sidechain without any kick going on, or without any kick that you would be expecting to go on, especially if you're doing more of an ambient sort of cinematic-y breakdown. So there's one sound. I think it was in. I actually don't remember exactly where it was. I think it was a Sean Ty. I think it was one of these. There's this airport lead. That's not bad. Obviously, don't want all this delayed reverb on it because we're going to be putting that on the master. That's going to sound really nice when we start opening that one up too. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now at this point is just go ahead and automate this mod wheel for the second lead. And really what I'm going for here, in fact, I may not even need to do this. Fortunately, it doesn't tell you what the instrument is, and it's important just to stay organized. That you do like rename it and color it and all these things, otherwise you will get lost when you're trying to do this. And really is what I want. So I want this to come in basically the second one. And of course, once again, this arrangement isn't perfect, but you can hear it building up. So actually, if I'm starting out with the pad, like the pads and whatever other orchestral instruments I have here, I may not actually have the drop start until over here. And this would be kind of like a build-up. And I think that's actually what, in this original track, they did. Obviously, you don't have to do it that way, but I'm just kind of thinking, just to kind of sketch it out. This is one of the nice things about FL Studio is you never really have to really commit to anything because it's always easy to go back and change things after the fact if you want to. So not locked in here, and then the kicks for the outro. Put them there. Of course, you know, haven't really done anything interesting with them. People would be mad at me. So like that note would be dropped out, etc., etc. Those four be dropped out, and you know, maybe some interesting fill or something like that, which we'll come to later. Those pads are really going to help fill out the mid-range there, because right now, well, I mean, right now there isn't anything else. There's no percussion, there's nothing else like that going on, but that'll help fill out the mid-range for sure as we start, you know, adding everything else. And yeah, so this is actually kind of coming, like, sketching along pretty well. I'm not sure if I should maybe I'll start doing the percussion now and come back to all the breakdown instruments. I mean, I have a lot of ideas, but I think in terms of like what's important to the track, definitely think percussion is going to be really helpful. Before I get too far forward, so what I do want to do is make a version of this, and I'm just going to call this sub intro or IO for intro and outro. And all this is going to be is a straight. Well, I think I'm going to do a D. This obviously is very easy to change. At any time. And I like working in these kind of 8-bar chunks. Don't always have to do it, but if you notice, you know, you have these chunks, it's very easy to make new sections of the song by just, you don't have to like go in and zoom in and delete things. It's really easy to just kind of right click to delete and you know, left click to place. And I always, you know, you never want any 8 bars to be exactly the same. That doesn't mean the patterns have to be different, but maybe you're doing something with automation. Trance by nature is going to be very repetitive, but there are ways to kind of alleviate the repetitiveness by using all sorts of different techniques like automation and fills, just so things are interesting. In fact, when you listen to like professional level tracks that are signed, you'll always notice that, you know, even every bar is different. Like there's always something new going on, there's always something different. It's subtle, and maybe most people won't realize it, but that's what really like sort of differentiates like a great track from just like standard good one. So that's kind of what's going on here. So that would be how the intro goes, like this, and then the sub comes in. The other option I have is to do this down to the B, which, because this is D minor, so its relative major would be B major, or sorry, D major, its relative minor would be B minor. It's a better sub note to work with, but whether or not we want that to be the actual note that we're using for the root, I'm not sure, so I'm just going to keep that like that. And of course, if I need to change it, I can go and it'll change all instances of this, which is the really nice thing about FL. So notice no sub in the first 32 bars. Once bar 33 hits, we'll drop the sub in there. We don't want it doing anything crazy, so I'm going to just sort of snag this section here for over this 8 bars, and I don't think it's going to go wacky on me here. It's funny, that kick sounds like it has something else going on in the high end, but I was looking here and You can even see it here, but I'm just not seeing it on the spectrogram. It's really weird. Or sorry, the frequency analyzer. Anyway, whatever. Regardless, let's check. No notifications. I doubt it's streaming on Facebook, which is really annoying. Okay. Oh, does this social alerts thing have like... Interesting. Well, go figure. Strange. I thought this might have been doing like showing any sort of messages. So here's the chat. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to look for. Cause I was, oh, that's cool. Anyway, this is the Restream chat. So I'm using Restream to sort of stream all this data to different platforms. That way, Facebook, YouTube, and what's the other platform? Twitch all have access to this data at the same time. So yeah. So yeah, I may work on some of this percussion now. Oh, I already had a clap pattern, so I can delete this one. It's ahead of myself, and I'm just gonna start here at bar 33. I already have this laid out, but once again, no sample. I know these are gonna be on the 2 and 4. So now I gotta just find a sample. Whoops. What did I do? Anyway. Gotta find a nice clap. And I love those huge sort of like reverby claps that kind of go on forever. I'll give you an example. Something like that. So this is actually one I made. I'm really tempted to use that. I love the way that sounds. So that's like a favorite of mine. I love using this one. It's actually sounding pretty good like that. I might layer this, but obviously this is too long. And oh yeah, this is set to cut itself, and that's definitely way too loud. Okay, cool. Now we just loop these 8 bars. Yeah, maybe I'll layer these two together. These actually sound not too bad. So all I need to do is copy and paste this. And I may actually route this to the percussion bus just because sometimes I don't, because I like being able to automate them separately. And I still could do that, I guess, but for now I actually am going to route this to the percussion bus. Cool. Now, the next, probably one of the most important parts is an open hat. And when I first started producing, I didn't used to use these huge open hats, and it wasn't until I started taking lessons and hearing other songs that I was like, wow, like that adds a lot of groove. I see. pretty nice. So I'm pretty sure I have an open hat here, so I'm just going to snag this guy. And let's go ahead and put the sample in. And I might put the Maggie Q4 on this clap. This Maggie Q4 didn't load either. For whatever reason. Hopefully this gets fixed. Not really doing much for me, so no reason to have that there, at least not for now. And I might try to give this a little bit more tack by sort of enveloping it a little bit. And I actually like having rides on these off beats as well. I think they really help give it a bit of sort of groove. So I'm gonna go. Why did I say that? It sounds like shit. Instead of a delay on them, I'm not a huge fan of. I may go looking around for this. Actually, maybe I have some of these on Splice. Curious if I downloaded any of these recently. So I go here to Ride. So you guys probably can't hear that, but I can. Not too bad, actually. I mean, it obviously needs a lot of processing, but for what it is... You really hear that standing out when I put it back. And what I may do is I may add a little bit of compression to this, only to sort of flatten it out a little bit. Little New York style compression there. Yeah, I'm actually liking the way that sounds with it compressed a little bit to sort of keep the volume a little bit more consistent. It's funny, this actually is more of like a tonal, almost like like a texture when you do it this way, because you're not, it doesn't really have any of the percussive element except for the initial transient that's adding up with the open hat and eventually the closed hats at the same time. So it's interesting, the part there that's actually really coming through the mix and that's sitting on top of the open hat is kind of the sort of FM-y, Besser function-y, being sort of metallic, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, metallic part of the cymbal. So it's funny, it makes a huge difference, and when I first started producing, I never really used to use rides this way. Maybe I'd have them on every 4 layered with the kick, and I always felt like my offbeats were missing something. And what I thought was actually an open hat was actually an open hat layered with a ride. And without the open hat, it misses that transient, that sort of white noisy part of the beginning. So it's kind of important to me to have both of those going on there. So. If you want to hear a good example of that in action, listen to Drum's a Weapon by Ferry Corsten. And you'll hear the intro part kind of come in, and you'll hear the open hat, but the ride doesn't come in until a little bit later. And as soon as the ride comes in, I feel like the track completely changes. Like, it just completely adds a lot of energy, and that's really when like the main drive starts. So huge thing. So obviously when the sub comes in, maybe I should mention this, not all this percussion is necessarily going to be going on at the same time there. I'm just kind of layering it all here at bar 33, and then once I have these building blocks, I can sort of add and subtract them just kind of however I feel like it once we have it in a good position. So. So I'm going to go ahead and create a closed hat pattern now. Okay, good. I don't have anything like that yet. And I'm going to do this, start off by making just 16th notes. And the way I like to do this is just with the piano roll chopper. It also helps a lot if you're doing trap, where you can just kind of go ahead and, like, you know, you can select a part and just sort of split it up. That's actually a little bit too fine. So we want this every quarter note. Or sorry, every 16th note. There it is, and that's not going to sound very good because they're all going to be the same. Let me go ahead and get a sound in there so you can hear what I am referring to. So. That's perfect. This Frame Breeze hat. And sometimes what helps a lot here is something like the Panomatic, just kind of have it panning a little bit from left to right. If you're listening to this in mono or on laptop speakers, you won't be able to hear it. So pretty subtle, but you can actually see the kind of the hi-hat dancing around the stereo field. That's pretty nice too. I do have it panned a little bit, maybe I won't. And I haven't even played with the velocities yet of this, and that's, I think, a lot of the fun part. And sometimes you can even play with the grooves. You can have them swinged, which kind of adds a little bit of polyrhythm. You can even do things like that when you're really kind of getting these rhythms to be different than the kind of standard 4 on the floor, straight 16th notes. So what I think I'm going to do, articulate? Nope. I think what I want to do might be quantize actually. So you can hear, this is like, these are the different sort of patterns. Oh shit, that actually sounded pretty cool. May go back and, oh, nope, that was not what I was doing. I was quantizing. Yeah, it's weird. In FL, the quantizer actually also does sort of this interesting articulation. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. And what sometimes helps with these is also putting on an LFO tool, which kind of just helps remove it whenever the kick is coming in. And from here, you can add shakers, all sorts of other. And what could really help too is using sort of like loops from different sample packs and stuff that you can slice around and play with and sort of create your own drum kits out of these loops, which I actually have 3 spaces open for loops for doing just that. So, and this, it doesn't really matter. Let's see here, there should be some loops. I don't know, I'm just kind of, I don't want to spend too much time doing this. That actually sounds pretty badass. So let me go ahead and call this loop 1. And we'll go ahead and add that in down here. And what I want to do is put this here. And you can see it already mapped the slices of the percussion loop. And this is where you can really have a lot of fun being creative. So for instance, putting a flanger or a phaser on here can really help. That actually sounds pretty cool, liking the way that's sounding. And here's where you can go in and play around with these slices. So you'll find also that some of these end up having other like open hats. This loop doesn't, but a lot of them do. And if that's the case, you'll often find that you need to reduce the velocity of where the open hats fall in the loop, or just remove them entirely. That way you're not getting this overpowering open hat, especially if you're mixing with your open hat pretty loud. In fact, I know producers that'll mix with their open hat the same level as their kick, which I remember thinking like, oh my goodness, wow. But sometimes it works. I mean, I've done tracks that way too, and it turns out really well. I think it just depends on the song. There's no rule. This is where you get to have a lot of fun and sort of be creative. is the real kicker there. So yeah, that's that case. Cool. Yeah. So let's keep going. So yeah. That is, and just for the sake, I'm going to duplicate that over there, and maybe I'll make some changes to that a little bit later. And this often helps to do an LFO tool on these as well, just to get them out of the way of the kick drum. You don't always have to do this, but a lot of people use these to sort of fill up the mid-range and maybe one or two for the high end. Why can I never see where LFO? Oh, there it is. And I find it good to just try to grab these loops and stuff from different packs if that's what you're doing, because that way it just keeps things from being boring and sounding the same. Because if you're combining these from different packs, it's not just going to sound like you just took it from this pack. Like, you know how many trance producers are using this, like these Dave Parkinson packs, which, I mean, are like the best there is. So, I mean, I understand why. But, you know, you don't want to sound like everyone else. You want to have your own sound. And part of the way you do that is by, you know, finding other samples and other things that no one else is doing and putting them together in sort of a new way. No one's expecting you to necessarily reinvent the wheel and, you know, synthesize your own drums every single track and, you know, skin your own goat and, you know, make your own drum. You know, you don't have to go that far, but, you know, just trying to be as original as you can, and, you know, also that facilitates the creative process, not sort of hindering it. I actually find these Activa loops to be really good. I mean, some of these are awesome. You'll hear some of these in like tracks too, and you're like, wow, like these sound awesome. Ooh, that's really nice. Love the way that's sounding. Chop it up. You got stereo information. You got all sorts of interesting stuff going on. So let's go ahead and put this on. Loop 2. Go ahead and make a pattern for that. Let's go ahead. Once again, same thing, put a little bit of LFO tool. So let's listen to what's going on here. And what may be interesting here is to do something with the filter. So this might be a time to use something like, where's love filter would be interesting. So just some interesting like, I'm wondering what is the morphing map to? Is that the cutoff? It seems like that's the case, and if so, is what I may do is turn this LFO So that's cool. It's adding a little subtle bit of movement. And these old Essential Club sounds often have these crazy weird loops that you can find. If we go over here, just go like percussion, these loops here. I'm kind of looking for something like that has like shakers in it. Curious what this would sound like. Sounds so like distorted, not exactly, but it's close. A lot of these Vengeance loops, and some of them might have actually been taken from like actual recorded tracks, which is kind of cool because then you kind of get this resample vibe. Ooh. So same thing here, I'm going to take that LFO tool and this is kind of nice too. I may make a new channel with this guy. Of course, now I'm going to have to route everything, but I'm liking the way that's sounding, so let's go ahead and try that. This is loop 4. Should have that guy in there. And I may just route this to the same channel as loop 3 is for now. So where is this? Go ahead and move this all the way up. This is the problem. And the new FL needs to hopefully have better just organization of these automation clips. I wish these wouldn't even show up here. Just they kind of get in the way. If there was just a separate like automation rack, I think that would be the helpful thing, because I mean there's no reason they need to be mangled up with all these other instruments. I think it gets confusing. Let's just call this loop 4 for now. Unfortunately, it's renaming all these other channels, which I shouldn't be doing because I have it set to not auto name channels, so that's kind of annoying. You used to not do that. And so this should go to 22. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to give this its own mixer channel because yeah, and the thing to do here would be to have a little bit of low pass, high pass. So you see that here, it looks like it'd be some nasty resonance frequency, but it's actually giving it the sort of tonality that it needs to have. So I'm liking the way that's sounding. So let's go ahead and hear that in context, and I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate that. Alright, so that's hey, not polite. Not this is my silly dog. Hello baby. Hello. Hello. Anyway, I'm gonna probably call that a day. I think this is good progress here, getting the sort of general structure of the track laid out, sudden kick, and then of course some percussion. And what the hell? Don't knock it down. Okay, thank you. But yeah, and I think next up I'll probably arrange the percussion around, and then get started on some of the effects like cymbals, crashes, white noise, risers, that sort of thing. Maybe get some mid-bass going, that way you kind of see this thing start to come together. One thing I think I will do really quickly, I'm just curious, if I bring this all over here to where this pseudo drop is. here you can kind of hear. Hello.
Are you taking class right now?
No, I'm recording. I'm like streaming.
Oh, sorry. Is it cool if I go to my desk?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, go for it. And then probably when that comes in, won't have anything. Read the close hats. Comes in, I'm finding it a little loud. Kind of abrupt. Of course, that'll be smoothed over by these transitions and everything. Let's see. it up.
Stop it.
So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the live stream there. I think that's a lot of good progress. Definitely check back. I should be hopefully sharing later this week, and we'll keep working on the track and make some more progress. Cool.